Hello and welcome to my channel. I went to lose gaming. So I've just spent over 6,000 resin farming the new artifact dungeon for the Tenacity of the Millelith and the Pale Flame artifact set. And I wanted to show you guys what I've gotten, as well as show you guys some of my thought processes and enhancing some of these artifacts. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the enhancing portion. So up to this point, I've spent about 1,600 resin on farming the Tenacity of the Millelith. Before we get started, I will say that I don't think I've really had any great artifact drops yet, but I guess we'll find out and we'll see how things look. So generally speaking, I start with one of the sets and see what kind of artifacts, are here to potentially enhance. And if we go through all, okay, here we go. This one looks pretty good. We'll give that a lock for now. And this one has potential. So for these ones that have potential, I generally take them to level 4 immediately to see if we can get the crit rate and crit damage. And its fate will be determined based on whether or not it gets crit rate or crit damage, and it didn't. So this one is just going to be EXP fodder for another one. And let's move on to the feather for the Pale Flame, and we'll see if we have any decent candidates. And this one as well is a candidate to take to level 4. And we got Elemental Mastery, so this one is a no-go as well. And let's take a look at this one. This one has potential to also roll crit damage. And we got crit damage, so this one is worth to take to probably at least 12, generally speaking. When it comes to artifacts with 3 starting substats with crit rate, and then you roll the 4th one as crit rate or crit damage accordingly, I generally like to take these to 12 and hopefully both of them rolled into crit rate and crit damage, and then I'll consider taking it higher. I took this one up to 20 because I had crit rate, crit damage. I need another energy recharge timepiece for all my support characters. So anyway, let's take a look. These ones you want attack percent, HP percent, or even defense percent. They're all good as pieces. As for the Pale Flame, you probably don't want Elemental Mastery as the main stat, but it can still be a good off piece if you do get one that's good. So this one might be worth considering to bring it up to level 4, but is there any physical damage dealing? Yes, there is. There's Xin Yan, right? So, this would be a great piece on Xin Yan if it did roll with the, crit rate. Anyway, we have this HP one. This would be decent on a physical bruiser Zhongli if it gets crit damage. Let's keep looking. And we have another potential defense one. So let's bring all these ones up to level 4. And we get attack percent, so that's not great. For me, I plan to invest at least 10,000 resin into this dungeon. So this one is probably not one that I'm going to be using. But I will hold on to it for now, just in case in the really off chance I don't get anything better. And we get crit rate, so this one has a decent chance of being quite good on a character like Xin Yan, as an example. So we're going to want to lock this just in case. This one, that's worth taking to level 4 as well. And we get flat attack, so this one is definitely no. And taking a look at the goblets, I'm pretty sure I did not get any physical damage goblet. Let's see if there's anything worth keeping here. Hydro damage bonus. Okay, so let's take this one up to level 4. It could be a good offset for hydro damage if we get crit. And we have flat defense. No good. That one's no good. Let's keep going. Attack, defense. So let's see if we have any circlets that are worth keeping. And it does not look like it. Oh, this defense one. Okay. Oh no, never mind. I thought I had crit rate as well. Defense is one of the few circlet ones that will out damage a crit rate or crit damage circlet on just a specific character albedo. So maybe in the future, if there's like more 100% HP or defense or whatever scaling abilities and characters, then you may want to keep some of these. But for me, unless like a defense or HP circlet starts with crit rate and crit damage, I don't bother keeping it. So yeah, that's just my mentality on that. So next, let's take a look at the Tenacity of the Millelith set pieces that I've gotten. So here we have a crit damage one. Oh, I already took this one to 16, which is kind of surprising to me. I'm not sure why I did that. And this one would be great for a support Zhongli, so I'm going to lock this. And we have this one in case this one just, rolls absolutely horrifically and goes all into defense or something. You could consider bringing this up to level 4, but as it is now, it's not worth it. And we also, we have a defense one that has crit rate and crit damage. This would actually be decent on Albedo. And we have this crit damage one. Let's go ahead and bring this to 4. So when it comes to crit damage ones and crit rate ones, if it has 3, I almost always bring them up to 4, just, because these ones are really hard to get good ones. And unfortunately it does not have crit rate, and with defense as the main stat, it's probably not something that I plan to keep. Here we have this one. I rolled it earlier and you can see it got defense percent, so this one will become fodder. Nothing else really worth talking about. That's also, a thing about the Tenacity Millelith set. It's actually fine to have really terrible artifacts. Like, I could bring this one up to 16, throw it on Zhongli, and he would be extremely effective using it, because all he really needs with this set is some HP to do his job well. So nothing really to write home about in terms of the timepieces. Let's bring this one up to 4 as well. And energy recharge, so this one will also be sacrificed. Taking a look at the feathers, this one has potential. And it did not, so we will be moving forward. So, I'm going to go for crit rate, crit damage artifacts. This one's no good. You can see I brought this one up to level 4. I believe this is also one that I threw on Zhongli just to have a 4-piece set bonus for him. These two are worth taking to level 4. Let's go ahead and see if they roll with the corresponding crit, and it did not. One thing about this is I do wish it would stay on the previous set that you had open, because, just less clicking is more time saved. Flat defense, and okay, this one already had crit rate and crit damage. That's nice. And let's go ahead and bring this one level 4 as well. Flat attack, so that one's no good. And this one also has some potential, so let's go ahead, bring it up to level 4. Energy recharge, no good. So barring the 2 previous ones that I got pretty lucky with, getting the corresponding crit, unfortunately it's not looking to be the same for the Tenacity of the Millelith. Energy recharge, probably not something that I plan to use. And we have another one to bring to level 4. But of course, since the Tenacity of the Millelith is most likely, a very support-focused set, you will want energy recharge, so maybe those are worth considering. But considering how much I plan to farm this dungeon, I think I'm really going to settle for those. So none of these really turned out well, that's okay. So let's go ahead and now upgrade some of these to higher levels. So sometimes for me, I personally like to kind of pull the band-aid off. And this one, I guess I will keep for now, just in case this one rolls a lot into energy recharge. I like to commit a bit heavily onto these. That way, I don't kind of chicken out and only bring it up to +4 or something. I generally like to take them up to 8 or 12 at once. I know this isn't, that's not always the most logical thing to do, but it's just a habit of mine. And this went as poorly as possible, going into defense percent and flat defense. Maybe Albedo can actually use this as a support character, but we will not be enhancing that anymore for now. And let's go ahead and take a look at this one. Hopefully this one can roll a couple times into crit rate and crit damage. So generally speaking, for my personal standards, I like to have 4 substats roll into crit rate and crit damage. That's typically like what I would view as a good artifact. And it also went into defense percent. So this one, because it started with 4, it's generally worth it to take it to 8, even if the first roll is bad. And it went into flat defense. This is not a good day. Maybe we should have Bennett actually roll some of these artifacts, because Klee right now is not doing any justice for us. And hopefully the second roll will go into crit. And it did, it went to crit damage, so that's pretty decent. It also has HP percent, which I can't complain. Let's throw that onto Zhongli. And also, a lot of like the jade weapons, like the jade cutter. Let's just keep enhancing this. And we're gonna cross our fingers and hope it goes into crit rate or crit damage. And it went to crit rate. All right, so 3.1%, not terrible, not the lowest roll. We're going to keep going, bring this up to 16, and I actually have to clear out some inventory space, so it's good to use these 3 stars to do so. Great, okay, so this artifact has some really good potential to be extremely good. And it did not went into HP percent, but this is actually a perfectly usable one on a physical DPS Zhongli. Let's see, we also have this feather to enhance. And let's see, so this one, if we get all of the additional 4 substat rolls and do crit rate, crit damage, it'd be pretty good. It goes into defense percent. It's also reasonable for Xinyan. So it went into crit rate. And another one into crit rate. That's pretty good. And wow, this one is a very crit rate heavy feather, which is actually extremely good because oftentimes for a lot of characters, crit rate is actually the one that you're missing the most. Oh my gosh, 16% crit rate. I actually believe this is my highest crit rate artifact that I own at this point, besides obviously it being a main stat. Let's actually take a look. Sort everything by crit rate. Here it is. The highest feather at 15.9%. And we have this at 14%, so it's higher than this flower that I had. It's higher than this timepiece that I had. It's even higher than this physical damage goblet that I have. And obviously, okay, so we have our crit rate main stats, but we get down to this. It's higher than the highest circlet that I have. So this is my new highest crit rate substat artifact that I own, which is pretty cool to have captured that while recording. Right, I wanted to get rid of more artifacts, so let's actually do that. And we got crit rate on it. Pale Flame, this one has a lot of potential. And let's hope we get, I don't know, flat attack, I guess, or even HP percent is fine. And I'm definitely going to take this one to 8 at the very least. We got HP percent, so this could be good on a Bruiser Zhongli build. But we're going to have to see and hope that it does not roll into energy recharge a whole bunch, and instead into crit damage. Okay, moment of truth. Attack percent, alright. Crit damage, okay. So this is already one of my best circlets now, having just a single roll into crit damage. Bring it up to 20. Okay, attack percent, let's keep going. Alright, moment of truth. So that's a lot of attack percent, and that's a, reasonable amount of crit damage. Yeah, this is a pretty decent circlet for me to use. We need to make some more inventory space, so let's go ahead and upgrade a couple of the ones that I've gotten so far. And we can start with this interesting HP percent one, because if this one comes out well, alright, so the first substat, let's hope it goes into crit rate or crit damage. Into crit rate, a low roll, but welcomed nonetheless. And unfortunately, energy recharge, but let's see how it does at level 16. And we got crit damage. All right, so why don't we go ahead and take this one up to level 20 as well. Okay, crossing my fingers, let's hope for a crit rate. And there you go, crit rate. And now that the enhancing portion is done, let's go ahead and take a look at the end results of 6,000 resin worth of artifact farming. So this resin does not include the Mora used either. So this is just the resin put into the artifact dungeon. And for free-to-play players, this is pretty much like 5 weeks of non-stop farming this dungeon. So it's not all that practical for a lot of free-to-play players. I definitely understand that. And that doesn't even include the Mora cost, like I said. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at what I ended up getting. This is the physical DPS Pale Flame set that I plan to use, or that I am using on Zhongli. But I will keep farming this dungeon a bit more up until about 10,000 resin. So I may get a few upgrades by then. But anyway, we can see this flower rolled pretty well. It has a lot of crit rate. And I also have this flower as well, which I rolled earlier in the clip. And funnily, I just got this one instead of that one, and this one's just pretty much a straight up upgrade. And I do have a couple that I took pretty far that I haven't gotten rid of yet. because if I have a second physical DPS character that I wanted to use at pretty much the same time as my first one, then perhaps these ones can come in handy. And same with the feathers. This feather has a ton of crit rate, and it's the best Pale Flame feather that I have. This one did not go so well so far, but it could be worth considering bringing up to level 20 if it all goes into crit damage, so I'm just holding on to it for now. And this one unfortunately rolled into defense percent, and you'll see in a bit that I'm actually really lacking in crit damage. But anyway, this timepiece is actually pretty good, especially for a timepiece, because timepieces are quite difficult to get good ones for. And this HP percent timepiece is one that I also rolled earlier while recording. And then I have a couple defense percent ones that didn't quite go the way I wanted to. Between these two, it's hard to say which one's better. But I would assume this one probably, because the only character right now that does physical damage with defense percent is Xinyan. And she also makes use of the attack percent stat as well. So probably this one came out better. And I may take this one to 20 if I don't get a better piece that's defense percent. Unfortunately for my goblets, there is nothing really worth writing home about. And next I have these crit rate masks. And as you can see, this one has pretty high HP percent, which is very useful on Hu Tao. And this one has very high attack percent, which is going to be pretty good on Eula. But you'll notice something about my Pale Flame set, I'm using this off-piece goblet, is that it adds an insane amount of crit rate, 81.7%. And what that means is that my crit rate to crit damage ratio on a character like Zhongli is extremely lopsided. Now for Eula, this will be mitigated a little bit. I believe Eula gains some inherent crit damage as her secondary stat. So with the 38% crit damage for Eula, this would bring me up to about 142% crit damage, but that's still a very lopsided crit rate to crit damage ratio. And next, let's go through my Tenacity of Millelith pieces. So right now I have a pretty usable set on Albedo. We can see here that this one rolled a lot into defense percent, and this one here, unfortunately, I don't think I have a good feather for. Actually, let's take a look at what I do have. So I don't really have any great feathers that are the Tenacity of Millelith, and I believe I ended up enhancing these to 20 because I really didn't have any better options, unfortunately, for the feather. This one rolled so much into Elemental Mastery, which is pretty tragic. And if we look at the flowers that I got, I have this one, which is pretty good. I use this one on Tenacity Zhongli. And we have all these ones that are not taken up to 20, and I'm holding on to them just in case I may need them. Because for example, if this one double rolls into crit damage, this would be pretty decent. You know, if this one double rolled into crit damage, this one would be pretty decent. But of course, those are big gambles, and right now I just don't need to take those risks. As you can see, this one rolled into attack, flat attack. This one rolled into flat attack. This one rolled into flat attack. This one also rolled into flat attack. Very, very tragic. And here is a pretty solid defense percent timepiece for Albedo to run. And I also got this really good Elemental Mastery timepiece for the Tenacity of Millelith, and I can see this actually being really good on Fischl later on, if, you know, Fischl's able to proc a lot of overloads or whatever because of the upcoming buff to overload damage. So you could realistically run an Elemental Mastery focused Fischl for a lot of overload damage once overload gets buffed. And we'll really have to see how big that buff is. So I have this very, very, very unfortunate HP percent timepiece. It just kept going into defense percent, which is, you know, pretty much useless. And some goblets. This one turned out decent. It has good crit damage. This is good for a pure shield support Zhongli. And I have a couple other goblets that I have saved. So next for the circlets, nothing really great actually, but they're all kind of usable. And this one rolled a lot into flat HP, so it gives, I guess, Zhongli an even beefier shield. And I do have this really interesting circlet Elemental Mastery again. So like I said, Elemental Mastery support. An Elemental Mastery Millelith user may come out soon, We don't know, right? So I'm just going to hold on to it because trying to farm these again is a huge pain. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll also have a showcase of my Zhongli running the Pale Flame set in the background, and also just let it play out. You guys can see, you know, just how powerful this Zhongli is with Albedo as support. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. This is 6,000 resin worth of artifacts, and let me know what you guys think about the quality of the artifacts. I know that it's not great, right? Some of them came out pretty well, but a lot of them did not come out great. Like, I really need more crit damage on my Pale Flame set. And I did not get a single good Elemental Goblet from 6,000 resin worth. So yeah, there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. My DPS Showdown with Yanfei versus Klee versus Diluc will be coming out hopefully tomorrow. There's one little hiccup with the video. It's pretty much all done, but there's just one little thing that I need to make sure is correctly done on it. And if you guys have any type of video requests or what you'd like to see from me, I try to read most of the comments that you guys post, so hopefully I will see it. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. Thanks for watching. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.
今感情の時